The full firepower of the US and Israel alliance unleashed on Iran. Wave after wave of missiles, targeting as many as 20 cities, including the capital, Tehran. The operation dubbed Epic Fury.
Hello, I'm Linton Besser. Welcome to Media Watch. And tonight, the world watches with great trepidation as yet another US military campaign in the Middle East, this time led by Israel, threatens to spiral out of control. It was just after breakfast in Tehran when the first missiles hit on Saturday, swiftly followed by retaliatory salvos against Israel and US bases across the region, with residential blocks in Bahrain and the UAE hammered by unmanned drones. Sunday brought confirmation of the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, and amidst the chaos, foreign correspondents proved their worth. PBS's Reza Sayar, one of the few broadcasting from inside Iran.
I saw some remarkable scenes, stunned, people in shock, pouring out of buildings, looking up at the sky, trying to figure out where these explosions were coming from.
And when, predictably, Tehran returned fire, correspondents in Israel reported the ensuing panic, including the ABC's Matt Doran.
So we are just going to make our way to a shelter while we are speaking with you. We have just been at the site of a Iranian missile strike.
Meanwhile, Channel 7 executives were no doubt relieved they'd trusted their gut and spent the coin to send one of their most experienced correspondents to Israel last week.
Just a short time ago, 5:13 p.m. your time, 8:13 a.m. our time, alerts rang out across the entire nation of Israel.
Last week, I'd called Chris Reason to talk about the challenges facing news networks in covering major international crises, unaware he'd been dispatched to Israel, and neither of us knowing, though clearly his instincts were as sharp as ever, that a strike on Tehran was only hours away.
As we speak, I'm in Israel covering the US-Iran tensions this week. We're the only Australian commercial television news outlet here. It is always invaluable for our journalists to be on the ground. But covering war zones involves hiring local fixers, translators, drivers and security. It's an extremely expensive exercise.
So expensive, in fact, that Reason's bosses were no doubt forced to choose the Iran story over another global crisis in the headlines, the war in Ukraine, the coverage of which Media Watch had planned to focus on tonight. We too caught over the weekend between important global conflicts. And why Ukraine? Because last week, the plucky former Soviet state marked 4 years since this most terrible moment.
The first siren has just gone off, and I've been told by city officials that that indicates that this is a city under attack.
The Kremlin's three-day war is now entering its 5th year of carnage, with almost 2 million dead or injured. 15,000 Ukrainian civilians have been killed. The worst conflict in Europe since 1945.
Whoa! Those two Russian shells that have just come in. I think it's tank fire.
The battle for Ukraine has been brought into living rooms across the world by journalists, photographers and camera crews who've put their bodies on the line.
The Russians have got reconnaissance drones high up above. They're looking for people, looking for logistics, looking for targets. And we have to presume those targets include us.
Francis Farrell, an Australian journalist with the Kyiv Indepth, has reported time and again from the front line.
The sounds of drones of all shapes and sizes can be heard above us all day.
Проходит над нами, какой-то бомбер, видать.
Where the risks for media workers are very real. 22 having already paid the ultimate price. From Brent Renault, an American doco maker shot dead by Russian soldiers at a checkpoint, the first foreign journalist killed after the invasion, To Alyona Romova and Yevhen Karmazan, the Ukrainian journalist and her camera operator, killed just a few months ago when a Russian drone struck their car. It's these drones that have changed the war for soldiers, but also journalists. The Guardian's Luke Harding told us last week.
Covering the war has changed. I mean, back in 2022, we could go pretty close to the front line. That's basically become impossible.
While filming on the front line in eastern Ukraine for an award-winning Four Corners last year, the ABC's Mark Willesee discovered this danger for himself.
We are particularly vulnerable to their drones, which means we have to move fast.
Getting back to safety was perilous.
Our military escort had to drive us over the muddy roads at breakneck speeds to try to avoid the Russian drones. A few months later, one of the soldiers we filmed with was killed just outside the bunker by a Russian drone.
But there's another battle being fought over Ukraine, less bloody but perhaps no less consequential, and it's the fight for the world's attention.
I think a lot of TV crews have left. The British tabloids are not here. It's partly expense, it's partly media priorities.
Harding says his stories from Ukraine still garner huge reader interest. But in December, the BBC axed its popular weekly Ukraine War podcast.
The war continues, but gradually the coverage has slipped down the news agenda. Just before Christmas, and with little fanfare, Ukrainecast came to an end after 506 episodes.
This 2025 study of conflict reporting across the globe found the decline in press coverage of the Ukraine war was a classic case of media fatigue, a phenomenon with potentially profound consequences.
Crises that fail to capture journalistic attention risk being overlooked, not only by the public, but also by the very policymakers and humanitarians tasked with responding and allocating funds.
Australia's newsrooms have also struggled to stay the course. The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald have sent teams to Ukraine on no fewer than 9 occasions since the war broke out, including an award-winning assignment in 2022 captured by photographer Kate Geraghty. The paper's parent company has also dispatched television crews to the country on 6 occasions, including for this Mark Burrows-led 60 Minutes report, and insists its commitment to the story has not waned, even though it has not deployed into Ukraine since October 2022, which was also the last time Seven and its chief reporter was there. Their brave work later recognised by a Walkley Award.
It looks like the target was this TV tower. You can still see smoke rising from the base here.
In addition to ABC documentary programs, all 3 of the ABC's current Europe correspondents have made trips to Ukraine in the past 18 months. An ABC spokesperson told us,
"Access in Ukraine has become harder, but that hasn't deterred us from deploying."
The Kyiv Independent's Francis Farrell sent us these reflections on Saturday.
It doesn't feel like the world remembers it. Now Ukraine is just another conflict, another war, something to be followed almost like a football match.
The difficulty for Australia's much straitened media industry is people don't stop dying in Ukraine when a new conflict breaks out in the Middle East. But it does make the European drone war, already perilous to report and expensive to reach, an even tougher choice for editors. And yet these are both conflicts, we're told by experts, which may forever change the international order, even in our distant corner of the planet. So for those brave enough to go, we can only hope the industry continues to find a way to send them. And now to the battle of the bulge and that new generation of weight loss drugs.
Ozempic and Mounjaro have revolutionised weight loss, with 500,000 Australians now using them.
Nine's Today Show has brought the story of these marvels of medicine to breakfast tables across the country, sometimes wheeling in its resident medico, Dr Nick Coatsworth.
This is fascinating. 500,000 Aussies now using these drugs. Are you surprised by that number?
I'm not really surprised. I'll tell you why, Ali. It's because these drugs are really so effective at what they do.
Effective, yes, but not a magic bullet and not appropriate for all, as Coatsworth made clear.
You've got to remember, if you don't have diabetes, if you're not carrying large amounts of weight, then there are side effects associated with the drug.
Though his focus, he told viewers, is on how to ensure the drugs are reaching those in genuine need.
I'm more interested in the people with real health problems who aren't actually getting these medications and how we get it out to them.
So should the government underwrite these drugs for more Australians and not just those with type 2 diabetes?
We would not be the only government in the world to go down the path of subsidising these. There's probably no better way to discuss preventive medicine than discussing weight loss within the community.
As it turns out, Channel 9's go-to physician has appeared a number of times talking about the use of these weight loss drugs and their potential side effects. Not just on Today, but also a current affair.
We know they work incredibly well for diabetics. We now know that they are very powerful weight loss drugs.
And on 9's 4pm news bulletin, once more suggesting the use of taxpayer funds to force down the price of these drugs so people can get them who can't presently afford them.
So do you back these calls for the drugs to be subsidised on the PBS for those with obesity, not just for those with diabetes?
If we're having portions of our population that don't have access to the drugs, then we seriously need to consider government funding.
But Channel 9 forgot to tell viewers about one piffling little detail, which was explained quite nicely by its stablemate, the Australian Financial Review.
The former Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Dr Nick Coatsworth, is now a paid clinical governance advisor to Eucalyptus.
A telehealth company that
has tied itself to the weight loss drug Ozempic more effectively than any other in Australia.
Missing from Nick Coatsworth's official and rather impressive 9 biography is his appointment in mid-2023 as a paid advisor to Eucalyptus, which last year turned over hundreds of millions of dollars, flogging, yes, weight loss programs like Juniper, which comes in a fancy box that contains health coaching, meal plans, a set of sleek new scales, and yes, pharmaceuticals by injection that, sadly, Eucalyptus is barred by law from marketing directly to customers.
Due to Australian therapeutic goods regulations, we are unable to discuss specific treatment options until your consult with one of our Juniper practitioners.
But only until then. Meanwhile, Juniper is marketing its product like this.
We don't have the time to go to the gym all the time. I love Juniper.
And my husband said to me one day, you know, I said I'd always love you no matter how fat you got. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, how fat are you intending to get?
With the help of these public service announcements, Eucalyptus has served more than 700,000 customers, according to the US giant, which last month snapped up the company for more than $1 billion. Great news for everyone, or not everyone.
Woman hospitalised after Juniper prescribes weight loss drugs her GP refused.
I was able to fill out a questionnaire and it had asked if I'd ever had a previous eating disorder, which I disclosed that I did. At the end of the questionnaire, I was accepted, no questions asked, and I was then sent the medication.
After months on and off in hospital, the company apologised to Claire and promised to better adhere to official healthcare guidelines. But it doesn't seem to love Australia's consumer protections, bemoaning in this November 2025 Facebook post that it was
limited in what I can say here, thanks to some pesky Aussie laws. Ha ha ha.
And a few years ago, shrugging off the concerns of drug regulators and the Royal Australian College of GPs by pushing ahead with the sale of unapproved replica meds to get around a shortage of the real thing. When Nick Coatsworth penned what we should say was a very balanced piece in the AFR in January last year, there was this handy disclosure.
Nick Coatsworth is a paid advisor on quality and safety for weight loss drugs to the telehealth company Eucalyptus.
And yet, the majority of Nine's viewers have been none the wiser because of his 10 television appearances that we've seen discussing weight loss drugs, including those sold by Eucalyptus. We could only find this one single disclosure almost 2 years ago.
Well, I actually sit on the Clinical Governance Advisory Committee of Eucalyptus, which does sell Ozempic to Australians and other weight loss drugs.
A spokesperson for Eucalyptus told us Coatsworth is not paid to promote its products and
It is a matter for Dr Coatsworth to make whatever disclosures he considers appropriate.
But sadly, neither Nick Coatsworth nor Channel 9 wanted to discuss just how appropriate their disclosures have been of the high-profile medico's conflict of interest. The bloke who held our hand through those rather dark years of the pandemic, Nick Coatsworth, is of course entitled to earn a buck any way he sees fit. But when he appears on our screens suggesting tax dollars might be poured into subsidising a weight loss product, however medically justified his opinion might be, I rather think it behoves him and Nine to remind us he's copping a paycheck from a company selling it. And that's all from us tonight. Be sure to check us out on ABC iView, as well as YouTube and Facebook. You can find full statements on our website. And don't forget to send us your tips. See you next week.